Hello. Well, as you can see, this here's a pretty nice deer. Nice looking whitetail. And we're getting ready to set the eyes in here. Everything's just a little bit different with each mount. Setting the eyes always the same. Pupils horizontal, a little bit of a downward tint. "10 degrees down, 20 degrees in." I'll line them all up, come back. I'll line clay around there. I like to use clay for the setting of the eyes, modeling in the eyelids and stuff. Now, again, this here is just done very quickly. I'll come back and model these around, because we'll actually use the skin to form the eyelids on here. That's what we're doing here. Kind of get them down. A lot of people go ahead and make them look real pretty so they can lay the skin back up against it. But what we do is we set the eyes, proper angle and everything, make sure all the gaps are filled up with clay. We'll put the paste on, then we'll come back, pull the skin over, and then once we get everything situated, and then at that point, then we'll go ahead and model the shape of the eyelids around here. That way the skin is actually pushed into the clay and it's an exact fit. That's the best way to be. So that's what we're doing here, just putting these eyes in temporarily as far as the clay goes, clay modeling. I'll do the same with the other side. Get right over here. Make sure everything's horizontal. Now I'll come back with a flashlight, check this, just to make sure. I'll shine in there, make sure the pupil is right on line like that. It's not up and down, horizontal. Rolled into little tubes coming around. Go ahead and wet our hands and use our hands. Go ahead and smooth this down. But we'll continue on this part. Once I get everything modeled in there, I'll go ahead and line this up. Like I said, let's go ahead and use the flashlight right now. We'll see what we got here. That looks pretty good. Now this one's way off. So now what I got to do here, go ahead and hang this puppy up. I'll dig that out. I'll go ahead and realign this in a proper way. Go ahead and use the clay. Usually you take your time to begin with and line them up like I done the first one. But I was in a hurry right there. Now this one here is lined up properly. Now let's put this flashlight back on here for a little bit. Hang that up. We'll get all this situated like I said. I'll come back in and smooth this down here in a few minutes. That's that part. So you'll see how quick this here will mount up. Now, beforehand, went ahead and I took rubbing alcohol or denatured alcohol, whatever it is you want to use. Come in here and rub off all this here. That takes away the mold release agent that they use at the factory to make these forms. And then I came back and I sanded all this. There's a lot of people, they'll go ahead and take a blowtorch to this here. Get it real dark and rough so everything will adhere to it. It's not necessary. Besides, you don't want to take a chance catching one of these on fire. But they won't burn that easy. So that's what you want to do. Prepare the form. Set the antlers on there. I skipped that portion on video because that's fairly rudimentary on here. But they must be set properly. Usually, from the antler burr to the eyes on a deer, it's roughly about 2 inches. That will vary. You have to have the right angle and pitch on the antler so it looks alive. You don't want to tilt it back where it looks sleepy or basically stupid, or forward where it just really looks goofy. So everything has to be done correctly, and always use your reference. That's very, very important. So we'll come back to this here in a little bit. Right before I go ahead and put the hide paste on, I'll do that quick, and we'll go ahead and edit it. We'll come back to me putting the skin on, pulling it up over. Well, here we are here. Like I said, just using the fingers right here to smooth this down a little bit. Again, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to dig out depressions in here to put the skin in. I'm not worried about forming an actual eyelid yet. That's not necessary, because I'm going to do that with the skin itself. We'll show you that technique a little bit later on. What I'm doing here, just kind of getting a little bit of nice contour. Again, I'm working a little bit fast. Not too bad. Let me just get over here, block out the screen, of course, and get a napkin, wipe off some of this. Okay, that's how you do those eyes. You're getting them ready, getting them prepared. And on this form too, we hollowed out, followed the sculptor's sculpting. We hollowed out the nose, the nostrils, the lip. We actually went up about a ½ inch up into the lip. We have a slot here that's cut out right underneath here. Right here at the tear duct, dug out there, because that's where all the skin's going to be tucked. You'll see how that's going to work real quick. Well, here we are now. Got all the hide paste on there, most of it. We're still going to put more down here in the brisket area and the armpit area later. That'll be like after we have the skin folded up here. That'll be the last place there I'll put hide paste on, because we want to make sure there's plenty of hide paste all on. Nice layer. Matter of fact, I'm running out of hide paste. Got to order some more, or just make my own. What I'm going to do here next. Let me get the hide paste off my hands right quick. Okay, put my stapler up. I have already inserted the ear liners into the ears. Now, the reason why I didn't show this procedure, simply because there's a few things I take for granted. Person watching this here has a little bit of knowledge about taxidermy. Besides, this is not for actual beginners, but there's a lot of beginner information on here. I'll be covering that in a more detailed presentation later. So we take the cape, it's already tanned, stretched, slip it up over the form, try to keep it out of the hide paste, pull it up on there, make sure everything works. Starting to get it adjusted. So what I have to do back here right now, with these little upholster pins that we use, help hold it up there. Here, we'll just kind of what I'm going to do here is fit this. Walk the skin up so you can feel it go together in the back. All this here will be pulled down tight later. Right now what we want to do is get this working good up around here. Now, go ahead and just put these in here just to hold the skin so I can manipulate it more. Taxidermy. Taxi means move around or adjust, and derm means skin, so we're basically skin adjusters now. Particularly now. This is what we're going to be doing. Putting this up. Get things adjusted. Notice how everything's starting to take a shape. We'll be tucking this in here in a few minutes. Just want to make sure we have enough skin to go around the back. We'll give it some more. What I'm going to have to come back here and do, I'm going to have to flip this over later. I'm going to have to go ahead and sew right here. This here was never sewing. Something that escaped my attention. So I'm going to have to come back and sew this. Because this is going to be part of the armpit going in there, the underarm. I'm going to have to sew that. It should have been done before I put it on the form, but when you get in a hurry to do things, sometimes you overlook it, you're not paying attention. Now, a couple different things you can do. Utilize various different modeling tools to tuck the skin in the areas. I like to use plain old screwdriver, one that's not very sharp, but it's still poked through the skin. So now what I'm going to do, get this lined up. Remember, we hollowed out all of that. I talked about it. What we'll do here, I'm going to trim up a little bit of this skin, excess skin, that we're not going to need. Line up the nose properly. Now, each form is different. Each taxidermist is going to do things a little bit differently. Now you can see what I just did right there. I just tucked that nose skin in. We'll come back and pin that later. But right now I just want to get the basics down. And since this nose skin is very thin, it was shaved thin of course, it's called fine tuning. You can see how it's already taken on a nice look. Now the lower jaw, obviously all this, the lips have been rolled out. What we want to do here, a couple different ways you can do this. You can tuck the bottom lip first and then tuck this over it, or tuck the bottom, or tuck the top first and then put this over that. So it really doesn't make much of a difference, but what I'm doing here, I'll go ahead and finish tucking the top around. Now if I have excess skin that I can't get up there, I will go ahead and cut that excess skin. So what I'm doing is just basically pushing it up into that lip slot I cut. There's different ways you can cut that lip slot. The Dremel tool, especially made drill bit, called lip cutter, or you can use a saw, You could actually use a drill bit and go around. Just depends how big a lip slot you need, what needs to go on. Kind of work your way back and forth. And you will push. That's why you got to be kind of careful, because regardless of the instrument you use, you can go ahead and push through. I can use a different tucking tool if I want, but sometimes I can't get a good grip on here. We'll go ahead and use this other one. You could just take a piece of stainless steel wire, the appropriate diameter, not too thin, not too thick, bend it, put it in a stick, and use that as a tucking tool. That'd work pretty good too. Has to be sturdy. Now I've got a slot back there I cut. Let's tuck these lips. Again, if there's too much skin, you can come back and trim off that skin. If you think it's too much to tuck up in there. Usually like to keep about about a quarter of an inch of skin, maybe a little bit more. Well, see there, and there. We'll make sure that lower lip protrudes. Let's say for some reason it was cut or ruined up in here. You could go ahead and just tuck this all the way up, let it dry. Then of course once the mount's set right and it dries, then you can come back and model in with epoxy right here and put that lower lip in. But if all possible, use the lower lip. Make sure everything's lined up. And what you want to do here is come back. Pin this area. Pin down around here. Brush everything. And you're done with that. Now we'll come back and do the eyes in just a second. Here what we've done is taken the skin, forced the skin down into that relief cut that we made, actual tear duct slot. Here we've formed the skin into the clay, so that way the skin isn't really actually touching the eyeball. And you notice too on the skin, the way it looks around the eye, it's not rounded. It's not perfectly circle shaped. It's more or less like egg shaped right here. And you can see where the white portion of the skin, of the eye I should say, is showing. Just like our eyes are showing, we have white around it. The band. Depending upon what it is the deer is doing, you may have more white here than here, or more white here, less white here. It just depends upon the look of the deer, and that's so important. Also too, the eyelashes. The eyelashes, they're not going straight up. You want to keep them about level. Again, using your reference for everything. And I have actually cleaned this off pretty much with a Q-tip. I got to come back there because there's glue all over everything, hide paste. And so what we're doing here, we're actually forming it. And then what I'll do, I'll go ahead and I'll come back in. I'll put a pin here, possibly maybe a pin deep in here. Make sure all this is formed right. You see how it's taken on a nice distinct look. And then I'm going to come up here and start sewing. And I'll have this flipped around next time we come back on here. So what I'm doing here again, I'm forming the eyes now. I'm using my reference. I'm looking at what does this deer look like? What does this eyeball look like? And I'm trying to form it. So always use your reference. So that's what we're trying to do here. Again, I'm going to put a pin here and a pin there. I'll do that for you right now. Put one pin right here. Hold that down as an anchor point. See that? This is called a brad setter. Could be under a different name, different manufacturer, but it's called a brad setter. I like to use the very long dressmaking pins on here. Not an actual brad, but a pin. And I'll put a pin here. Now sometimes you'll hit the wood in here. You can't put it that far, so it just depends. Let me see, I got it in there quite a little bit. Go back over there. Yep, I hit the wood right there, so I got to leave that set there till it dries. Drying them out usually takes about, a week to 10 days. It just depends. This is shaved pretty thin. It's been cream tan. Now I'm going to come back, work the skin around the antlers, make sure it's underneath the burr, pull it tight up here and start sewing. But again, we'll come back to that. So what I've done over here, I'm going to do over here to this eye, and we'll come back and do that there in a few minutes. What we're doing now, we're sewing up the deer. I use artificial sinew. There's different threads that you can use out there, fishing line, monofilament, etc. But artificial sinew, you can't get better than this. It's not going to break. It's not going to stretch. It's going to lay there. It's flat. It's waxed. It works. And the type of needle I'm using, what they use, a mortician, it's a post-mortem needle. You can get them curved, shorter. I like a little bit longer ones because I can actually, a little bit more difficult to work with, but I can actually have more torque on it. I keep it sharp. It's a tri-face, it's three-sided, so you can go ahead and just sharpen that. That way it'll punch right through the skin, not a problem. Some people pre-punch their holes, but I don't see any need to pre-punch holes. So what I'm doing here, when I first came up here, I went through one area, went through the other, made sure everything was up underneath the burr, pulled it tight, tied a knot, then I went back and forth, baseball stitch, just like that, just like I'm doing now. Back and forth on down, because this here had a V incision, a V, right like that. So what I'm going to do over here then, I'm going to have to do the same thing, pull that. What I'm going to do here is finish this up. Because what you do in the beginning, pull through one end, pull through the other, tie that, make sure everything's lined up, then just sew it on down. And then down here we'll stop. I'll cut this off and start on the other side. Then I'll sew down here. Just keep on sewing. What we're doing here, making sure everything's lined up as we go. Keep an eye on things. Now you notice I preset the eyes. I went ahead and done all the work I needed on the eyes. That was real important, to me anyway, because that's just the way I do it. And then I come back to all the sewing. Some people will wait till they're done sewing everything they need to do, then the last thing they'll do is set the eyes and the ears. The last thing I do, I'll set the ears up in the right position. That's the last thing I'll do. But for right now, I just like to get the face looking good. That way I can go ahead and, yeah, that looks good, so I can go ahead and continue on here. That way I don't run into any major problems. And if I have to, for whatever reason, got to take it back off, I didn't waste all that time having to unsew it or actually go ahead and cut this, the thread. So I go ahead and set all this first, and then I come up here and I start the sewing. Now that doesn't mean I don't go back and make adjustments, because I do. You have to make adjustments on a mount as it dries. Watch it very close the first day. Then after that, I mean, hey, you know, it should be tight enough that you don't have anything because you've got it done. See, now what I'm going to do here, I've got this V entirely sewed up. So go back through the top. Like I said, we're going with the larger needle. It's a little bit cumbersome, but I'll go ahead and loop this a couple times. 1, 2. Now we give it 3 for good measure, huh? You don't want to overdo it, because then this thread here will lock up on you. Cinch that up. Cinch it up. There you go. Now it's locked. That's not going anyplace. Okay? So now what I'm going to do is cut this off. I'll leave it out a little bit. I don't want to cut it off right there. Never do that. Always give yourself something to work with. There you go. Because if you cut it off down short, you loosen up the fibers and the threads. So this is multi-layers of flat artificial sinew, and you'll cause it to come undone down there. So now what I want to do over here is pull this together, tie it off, sew down, and then we can start sewing down here. And as I'm doing that, I want to make sure everything's adjusted properly. So let me go to the other side right quickly. I don't know how good you can get this on the video, but because I'm probably in the way. But what I want to do here, I can see right where this comes up. I want to go through there, show you what I'm talking about. See where this is going to come together, way up in here. Again, my head's probably in the way, but and sometimes if it's real hard to push through the skin, you got a couple problems. Number one, your needle's getting dull, and I think mine's starting to get dull. Or the skin is too thick. Well, I know skin isn't too thick because it's shaved pretty thin. So what I want to do here is I want to go ahead and get this skin worked underneath there and tie this off like I told you about. I'll just go ahead and put that in there. I want to work it up underneath there. Don't know if I'm kind of leaning back here so the video can show it to you. Otherwise, I'm usually all up over the deer. So I'm pulling that tight up around here. Just quickly, I want to come back around, just make sure I didn't miss anything. Everything's underneath the burr. Everything looks good, looks fine. So now I'm going to go ahead and tie this off because I've got that just snugged up against there. Customarily 2. Then we're going to go 3. Snug that up there. Now, again, just baseball stitch on down. That's all I'm going to do. Go back, baseball stitch. Then later, if you want, you can come back in if you want, put like little pins or nails in here to help hold that together. But you don't have to if it's sewing right. Because I guarantee you this is not going to break. There's no way. Again, some taxidermists like to use thinner material, especially if they're in a competition or something. They want to make sure everything is just so-so. But hey, this stuff works. It's reasonably priced. You can use this thread on anything, this artificial sinew. From life-size bear, Kodiak moose, African game, all the way down to the North American. Whitetail, mule deer, what have you. It'll work. So here's what I'm doing. I'm going back and forth. Clear the hair out of the way. You can always come back, clear it out a lot better, but you get most of it out. Now if you feel better, more comfortable using a smaller needle, you can do that. But this bigger one works fine for me. This is what we're doing here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and continue sewing this down. I'm going to sew down here, and then keep on sewing. So we'll cue back in here in a few minutes. Okay, now I'm down here, last little piece of sewing thread, or artificial sinew. Now, what am I going to do? Well, I already have another piece ready. What I'm going to do to tie this off, to finish this piece, come up one side, pull this out, tie it off like I did underneath the antler burst. Get this out here. Okay. So what I want to do here now, I want to pull this together. Pull the hair up out of the way. It's always hard to show on video sometimes, but I always like to have 3 knots there, just in case. Alrighty. Now, this other sewing thread, when we're done here, pull that up out of the way. I'll go ahead and tie this off here so everything's tied. There, now that's totally tied off. Now, I'll leave that alone. I'll trim that off later. That's not important. What's important now is to get all this right and just continue sewing. So now I just continue sewing. Typical baseball stitch. Back and forth, back and forth. Now here I have a thin piece that's probably going to pull out on me, so I have to be careful with that and continue sewing. So I got to be careful with that. Pull that, continue sewing back and forth all the way on down here. That's when we'll pick it up again. Well, we got the rest of that sewed up. Back and forth baseball stitch. Came down here, just got a little bit left. Usually I've got like a foot or more. So what I'm doing here, I'm getting this skin back in the proper lay procedure where the hair's laying just right. Now, usually when you're pulling things tight, you're pulling the hair up there, you're going to have little bumps up here. So you grab a hammer, you could use a piece of wood, put that down there. If you use a hammer, make sure it's smooth hammer, not the one with ripples on it. So, we'll make sure, just come in here, knock down any unnecessary bumps, help push that skin back in alignment. Because again, if you're pulling something tight, you're going to make it bunch up a little bit. So that's what I'm doing here. And later on, when we go ahead and we set these here, all this here come down. And once we go ahead and put some hair set gel on here too, to help get this to lay until it dries, all this here is smooth out. So that's what we done. Pulled all that together, sewed all that down. Now we're making sure all that's pulled down. We use, what I like to use, you can use an air stapler or whatever other instrument that you have. I like to use 1 3/4 inch galvanized roofing nails. Right up here, right where you brought it together. Bring it in a little bit. Take that piece of thread, wind it around, that's locked down. Go to the other side, lock this side down. There you go. And then what you do, you pull the skin in, pull it in, make sure everything's in alignment, and you nail it. We're going to nail one side, then I'll finish it up, then we'll come back, we'll nail the bottom part. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do here. Just to go ahead, make this easier. Pull this skin. You always want to make sure your bottom's lined up. That'd be your brisket area. I was already around to the front and I made sure that was lined up. You want to make sure all this is lined up. Pull the skin down. About an inch piece, inch part. Nails here, don't have to keep reaching back there. So you do this all the way down on this side. And of course, once I do all this, I'm going to come back and trim that off. But now here's a tip for you. If you ever get a skin in that's really short, and it should be a little bit longer, but it's just right there at the edge of the shoulder area, you really wish you had some more, so you go ahead and form it and pull it over there. You're going to have to line this up, and then you're going to have to go directly down here to the brisket area and pull this up and line it up and pull it real tight. You may have to really squeeze it, pull it and stretch it just to get that on there. But you see, we have plenty to work with here, so I'm not worried about it. But other than that, you have to alter the form to fit the skin. That's why whenever you skin these babies out, it's always at least 5 inches behind the shoulder blades. A lot of people cut it too short. 5 inches behind. Here's the shoulder blade right here. All of that. So 5 inches is right here or more. Midway of the rib cage if you want. From the brisket to the top, all of that's got to match. You got to skin all of that out. That's what you need for a full shoulder mount. So this is what we're going to do here. So I'll continue on. I'll pull that down. I'll do the other side. Then I'll flip it around. And we'll see you on the other side of that. Okay, here's what we did. Went ahead and nailed down, flipped it over. Of course, we nailed down this side. Now we're aligning the brisket area. As it turns out, because of the way this form was made, right up here it's supposed to represent part of the leg. This skin's a little bit short. Now I could have went ahead and filed that off. I went ahead and used it. You can see where I folded the skin over and nailed it there. I'm going to have to go ahead and use a staple gun here to do this. Go ahead, make sure there's plenty of hide paste, glue, whatever it is you're using, down here, the armpit area, so you can fold that in. You line up everything, you look down part of the deer, you make sure the armpits are aligned with the brisket sculpturing of the form itself. Make sure all that looking good. Then you can come back and do your final nailing. Again, I know taxidermy, so they have air nailers. Boy, they just go, but sometimes you can get a little careless with that. I like the galvanized roofing nail. They have a little bit larger head area that hangs onto the skin. Firmer grip, it works. Yeah, it's slower, but if you want to do a good job, take your time and do a good job. You're only going to have one opportunity to do it. So do it right, be done with it, move on to the next one. Now you notice I'm using a hammer like this. It's my old shop teacher. If he saw me doing that, he'd go ahead and bring me out a little dinky hammer and say, "Here, Michaels, go ahead and do this." But actually, to use a hammer is supposed to be back like this. But for more control, I was doing that. So, let you know, I've been through those classes of years gone by. And don't be afraid. If you whack your thumb, your finger, it happens. It'll heal. Get over it. Keep going. Double check. All this looks good. Again, like I said, I'm going to come back here with a stapler and get that with it. Let's get this here twisted around. Make sure that it doesn't twist on me too much. Okay. Well, what I'll do, come back, I'm going to trim this around here. Get out. Go ahead and see if this knife here is sharp enough. And you can see just a little bit more. What I do is just trim. It's good to use I got in the habit of using a razor blade. But we can go ahead and use it this way. So what I'm doing here is just trimming this This part here you're not going to use. One side. Now if I'm gumming up, I want to be careful that I don't slit and cut my arm. So I'm left-handed, so I'm doing this backwards just to show you for the ease of the video here. Here. What would be better for me to do is come in here with a nice razor. Just go ahead and trim all this up really good. That's what I end up doing here in a bit. But here, use your brush, typical brush. You can pick up a pet supply store. Live on a ranch, you know the brush I'm talking about. There's a particular name to it. What I want to do, I want to go ahead and get everything combed correctly, swing around, look at the front of the deer, make some adjustments probably around the antler burrs themselves. But what I want to do is get all the hair laying in the proper direction and in the proper fashion that I want, so when it dries, it's going to stay there, it's going to lock down. But it's sort of like you get up in the morning, you take a shower, and you slick your hair back, put your hair gel on or whatever, and then when it dries, it's going to stay there. Hopefully. But anyway, it'll stay there. Same way with any taxidermy mount. Once you slick the hair down and you get it laying in a proper fashion that you want, you have to make sure that it stays that way until it dries. Anyway, we'll come back to another section in just a moment. Well, now what we're going to do, obviously a few different things, but I've already groomed it a little bit. Basically just kind of brushed it out, made sure all the hair patterns are the same. Adjusting the skin back and forth a little bit, line up everything so it's just right for the lay of the mount. Now, deer wouldn't look good like this. I've seen some deer like this. These ears should come up like this. So what we're going to do, I'm going to use an injection process. This is regular set paper mache mixed to a thicker consistency, and in a tube injection process, I'm going to model in the earbuds. Instead of stuffing them with clay, I'm going to inject paper mache into them. That way they dry quicker and they dry a lot better. We are here at the second tube full on this side. Got to make sure. I think that's enough. What I'm going to do, I've injected both earbuds with paper mache, running back and forth here to the water. So I want to make sure none's squeezed up in here. I want to protrude the muscles, the earbuds. We twist the ear round to the front. We use some wire specially made to hold the ears. Dig out any excess paper mache. Come over here, clean the hands again. Over here we're looking at the same thing. I'll go ahead and get these ears looking about. Right, now first of all, the deer, if you look in nature, almost nothing is in nature is absolutely perfect. If you look at a taxidermy mount, and if everything is just absolutely perfect, everything is set, looks absolutely perfect, that's not nature. That's the taxidermist. And what I need to do here, get this one. Try to line them up. How's it look there? What do you think? Alrighty. Got one there. This one here. We're lining it up. Now again, we have to take in consideration the antlers. How do they swoop? Do they come down? Are they in the way? Do you have room to put the ears the way you want to? So all of that makes a difference. Alrighty. What we're doing here now, make sure this is turned right. Putting that paper mache back down. Now again, this is going to harden up rather quickly. So we want to make sure we've got the basics down, the ear set properly. I'm not really worried about putting a lot of muscles, ridges, into the ear butts, because this here is more or less a swollen necked deer. What I'm doing here is modeling in. Bad thing about working with mache, sometimes you got to make yourself keep washing your hands. Now again, this is a right turn, soft right turn, so see a bit of the ear muscle there coming down. I do believe we got it. I'll come in here and make some final touches here in a few minutes. But that's how we do it here for a commercial quality whitetail mount. That's what we're doing here. Now again, I'm going to come in here and make some changes, because you'll see it when we're done, when it's going to be put up for drying. So we'll be back here in just a second. Well, here we are. Went ahead and made some adjustments, and basically what that was simply modeling in the ear butt muscle, facial muscle here on this whitetail. Now it's all ready to be set outside to dry, or in your drying room with a fan on it. And I'll keep an eye on this detail work in here. If I have any doubts about the depressions that I want to be kept or the form, I'll go ahead and get a piece of foam, put some needles through it, and just go ahead and pin it down where I want it to, run some needles up in there, stainless steel needles, and it'll be fine. So there you have it, a commercial quality deer. quickly. Now here's that big deer we mounted up earlier. It's been a couple weeks. Everything's dried. I kept a good check on it. Now, what we do on any deer that you mount up, any elk, moose, bear, sheep, doesn't make any difference what it is. What you do, you comb through it, ruffle up everything. Now, during the mounting process, if everything was mounted properly, everything's going to lay properly, all the hair is going to lay properly, and you're not going to have much of a problem. Henceforth with this one here, everything turned out very well. So what we're going to do, basically come back, using a comb, fluff up the hair here, there, make sure anything here is pulled out, and then what we're going to do here is just come down with this typical brush. You want to brush it all out very well, and then you want to go ahead and use the shop vac. Make sure everything is blown out very well. Now I'm going to go ahead and finish this up, and then I'm going to take it inside. So we'll see you inside. Now we're back inside. We have everything that we need. All that's been taken care of. Went ahead and fluffed out here around the ears. Combed down here, fluffed all that out, blew off any extra paste or anything that had crystallized on here, or tanning cream that we used. But you can see this is actually really going to be a nice commercial deer. Now, one thing I don't do is I don't worry about putting septums in deer. That's for competition mount. And really, be honest with you, if you're going to take a flashlight, you're going to look in there and see if that septum's in there. And see if you can see a vein. And that's kind of ridiculous for a commercial mount. Whenever you mount up something, always use reference. Make sure it looks like the animal that you're mounting. And get everything proportioned correctly, and you should be happy. All these little finer details are needed and are appreciated by customers, but the question is, are they willing to pay for it? This is your typical $400 deer mount, commercial quality. Now, there are people that charge $575, $600, $700, $800 or more for a deer mount, and they get it, but then they put a whole lot more work in it. But I got a question for you. What looks real? Does this really look like a deer? Sure it does. It looks like a whitetail. This is fine. The average working person, that's the person you need to sell to. Now, if you're just catering to the rich, well, obviously that's what you do. But right now, this is for the average working person, typical $400 mount. It's about average across the United States. Certain places, depending upon the economy, may be a lot lower in price. But that's what we charge right now. Now, okay, let's go ahead and get on with this here. Enough about that preaching about that, about what's good, what's not, how much, etc., what not to use, okay? Two-part epoxy. I like to use Magic Sculpt. This is what we have in stock in our store. So that's what I use. It's Magic Sculpt. You got a hardener and a resin. 50-50 mix. They do have other type epoxies that you can use, and you use what you're used to or what you like to work with. Each person has their own little technique, their own little twist on doing things. So go ahead and do that. Right now, you mix the two together. I like to use hot water and put that in there because it's a lot smoother concoction. And go ahead and mix. What we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and apply a little bit of epoxy in here in the nostrils, around the eyes, the tear ducts, and that's going to do it. But we're going to do this here rather quickly. What I do on one eye, of course, I'm going to do on the other one. We can go ahead and make like a little Tootsie Roll. Here. We'll go ahead and go do this eye first. Go ahead and use my fingers. I like to use my fingers a lot on things. Now, don't be too alarmed at what you see because it looks a little messy. Now, you can use a sculpting tool, and that's what I do. But I'm going to show you a little trick here. What I like to use, typical cotton swabs. But first, let me use the sculpting tool. We'll go ahead and get this over here. You'd be surprised. Now, this here is wet and moist, and we can spread it very, very easily. That's what I like about using a cotton swab. Fill up that tear duct. Now, on a large deer, any large deer that's swollen, that's in the rut, the tear ducts are a lot wider because the whole face is bulged out and swollen from the rut. But this is not the case here. What I'm going to do there, work that back in there. Fill up any openings. Now, go ahead and wet cotton swab. Now watch this. We can come back in here, work this around, take off the excess. That's what I like to do. Again, this is a commercial quality mount. I'm not worried about little things you can see with a flashlight 2 inches inside the nostril. That's not important. These are hollow nostrils. Everything looks good. Okay, what we're going to do around here. Now what we're going to do here, we're going to blend that epoxy into the surrounding skin area. You just don't want like a certain amount just kind of sticking out, etc., because then that would not look good. So I want to go ahead and blend that in. Even use your finger again. Use the fingers a lot. But again, all of this is done with the basic common tools that's available to you in the area in which you live in the country. So anything that I'm using should be available to you. Not really anything too special. Even make your own mounting stand if you like, if you're a welder. It's not very much of a problem, that's for sure. What I'm trying to do there. So we got that more or less blended in. Now, when I come back and color this, I'm going to come back and wipe all that off. But I have to give this time to dry. So now, what we're going to do here about the nostril, about the same thing. Go ahead and grab some of the epoxy sculpt. And I'm going to just go ahead and use this part of the cotton swab. Put that in an area that needs it. It doesn't really take you that long to finish a deer, or anything for that matter, this size. Now again, it depends upon how you mounted it up. If it's mounted up right, the skin all lays there, everything's pinned, everything looks good, you're not going to have much of a problem. So you use the epoxy where it's needed. Again, you're looking at reference, okay, all the time. Now you notice I'm not looking at reference. Well, the reason why that is because it's going to take a long time if I do. But I'm telling you about the reference, all right? I've seen enough deer to know what they look like, know what's needed. And for a commercial quality mount, charging right around $400. It depends. Sometimes we'll go just a little bit less just to help people out. I don't try to take advantage of anyone as far as that goes on taxidermy. But also, too, we deserve a fair price because we deserve a fair wage. And that's important for the commercial taxidermists. Many people think they should be able to go ahead and get it for practically nothing and have it finished within 30 days. Well, I'll tell you what. Our price for rush work is usually anywhere from 50% to double the price. So if you really want it back within 30 days, we can do it. And it'll be guaranteed for life, but it's going to cost you double. 90 days, or less, guaranteed or it's free, that's 50 to 70% more. Just depends upon exactly what it is we're talking about. So here, I have that done. I'm going to do this here to this side. I get all this finished, and then we'll come back and we'll paint it. All right? I should say we'll use dye on it. You see, that's the key. You don't want to use paint. You want to use leather dye. Okay, this has been given enough time to dry. Now what we're going to do, we're taking leather dye, Suede Renew, black leather dye. Spray can, just about empty, so hopefully I got enough. Now don't worry about any of the overspray. I'll take care of that in just a minute. Going right over here. Now on the inside of the ears, pull the hair back, and we want to get a little squirt in the inside to give it the depth perception, also to darken it up, make it look more realistic. There you go. Now, some deer, they have blacker tones, darker tones up here, then you can lightly to your heart's content. Okay, now what I've done just here, forgot to get this chair done. There you go. Make sure you get the nostrils around here. Now, don't fret. Don't fret. We'll take care of that. Now, got that done? 100% pure acetone. You can use different chemicals if you want. Acetone's a little rough to use, but not something you want to drink, obviously, or anything like that. Don't want to spill it on paint. It will melt some plastic, so that's why acetone. Acetone's pretty rough, but I'll tell you what, it works. Unfortunately, it's absorbed by your skin, and you have to be careful on that. Now, what I want to do here, I'm blending this in here, right, the overspray. I can keep going, just keep pulling that out. Now, notice the eye's all black. What I do here, the wet cotton ball here, is I'll get off most of this, okay? See that part there I took off? Now, here's where the Q-tips come in again. I'll get the Q-tips, and I'll come over here. I have a little cap full of acetone. And again, you want to be careful with chemicals like this here. It would, you can get this here at any discount stores, 100% pure acetone. A lot of women use it for nail polish remover, and anyone else that polishes their nails. But what I'm doing here, I dipped it in here. I'm going to come back and make sure we see that nictitating membrane. Polish off that pretty good. I'm going to do this to the other side. I'll go over here, get another cotton ball. Wipe off that side. Right here. Make sure you get all the little fibers back. Get more acetone. Now here, I'll let that dry for a second or two. Now here, you notice how I sprayed it around here. I want to blend that in. That's what I want to do. I'm going to blend this in. Now here, portion of the lip. Blend that in, because you just don't want a fine detailed line where it just breaks. You want to blend it in so it looks natural. Look around here. Q-tip, acetone, come around here. Make sure that's all clean. Pull off those little extra fibers. Big drawback to using anything cotton, you've got little fibers all over. And then you got to make sure you get them all off. Okay. You want to give that a few minutes to dry, and then you'll look it back over, see if you got any touch-up. I think I have a little touch-up due here underneath the eye. I'll do that here right after this acetone that I used on there dry. Acetone dries real quick, and it's absorbed by the skin really quick. So I'm going to give that a few moments, come back, and then we'll go ahead and finish it. Okay, I took a good look, made a few touch-ups. And now all this is dry. Now we're going to gloss it. And glossing it, fairly easy. I'm using crystal clear acrylic. You can go ahead and use polyurethane if you want. The key to it is gloss. And it's clear. Now, this is what I'll do here. 1, 2, 3. Now, let me just move this just a second. We'll get it right back over here. We got that one. Now we'll go to the nose. Squirt inside. Down there, already got that. Get on this eye. 1, 2, 3. Now, if you're too close, or if you spray it on too thick, you'll get like little bubbles, little hair things. Now you got to be careful now because it's real sticky. But the bubbles and things will come right out. So take your time, go right back. Now if you wanted to do this, you go ahead and wet this with water first. And you don't want to touch the eye. You have to give this time to dry. This will dry within an hour. It'll be fine. So you want to make sure you don't drip it or anything, because if you did that, you have to come back, strip the whole eye, and redo the whole thing again. So you don't want to do that. Make sure there's no bubbles there. Make sure they're there. Look around here, get a final look. And there you go. This is a commercial quality deer head that's worth $400. Or less, depending upon where you're at in the country. You have to meet your marketing demand. If people in your section of the country can only afford $300, $350, well, you're going to have to lower your prices and meet that demand. But right now, supplies are getting expensive. They are expensive, and they're going up. You're getting more companies, more supply companies being bought up by some major supply companies. And pretty soon, certain companies are going to have a monopoly on our industry. And that's going to be bad for us, okay? But for the most part, you have to work out the cost, and that's going to be another tape of mine on how do you calculate the cost, how much to charge for a deer head. But right now, here you go. This finishes up our project of mounting this thing. And just have to let it dry and call the customer. I guarantee you it's going to be happy. Thanks.